Jesus' coming, the days that precede his second coming, don't seem to be necessarily marked by absolute depravity and wickedness, and sin is at an all-time high, at least not according to Matthew 24 and Luke 17. That is not the comparison Jesus is drawing. In Matthew chapter 24, Jesus says that his coming will be like the days of Noah. But what is the comparison he's drawing? And how is his second coming like the days of Lot? If we can answer these questions, we can figure out some key details about the second coming. We might not be able to know the day or the hour, but we can know the general season and be prepared. In this video, we're going to address some common misconceptions about the second coming of Christ. So let's jump into the scriptures and see what Jesus is really saying in Matthew chapter 24. You should probably know this is episode 20 of about a 23 episode series on the end times in the Gospels. So I'm going to be assuming you know some things we've already established. I would highly recommend you go watch the entire series in the previous episodes before jumping into this with us. Matthew 24:37. So there's your disclaimer. It says, as were the days of Noah. Actually, let's back it up. Concerning that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only. And we talked about in the last episode how this day Jesus is referring to seems to be the day heaven and earth pass away. And he says, as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. So what day does Jesus have in mind here? The day that he comes in power and glory with new creation, the second coming of Jesus, where he brings judgment for his enemies and salvation for his people. And he's saying that day is compared to the days of Noah. So what we should be asking as good Bible students is, okay, I see a comparison being made. Jesus is saying that his day is going to be like the days of Noah. So in what way is Jesus comparing the two? What is the comparison that Jesus is drawing? And what's the key similarities? Because we can assume, and you might have already assumed that you know how the days of Noah are like the second coming of Jesus. But I would highly recommend that you let Jesus explain. It says, as in those days before the flood. So what days exactly are we talking about referring to Noah? Well, the days that came before the flood. What about those days? Well, in those days, they were eating and drinking. Who? It's another good question to ask. Who are the people eating and drinking? They were marrying and given in marriage until the day when Noah entered the ark, and they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. Or you might say, took them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. There's that statement again, if you didn't catch it the first time. So notice a couple things. We have the day that Jesus returns. That day and hour, no one knows. Okay, what about that day should we know? It's like the days, multiple days of Noah, right? So it's plural days. And then as in those days, once again, they were eating and drinking until the day. Once again, a single day. So we have this interesting comparison Jesus is drawing. We should probably ask, what is he saying? He says, well, they were eating and drinking, marrying and given marriage, and given in marriage until the day when Noah entered the ark. In other words, up until Noah entered the ark and up until the flood waters came, these people were engaging in normal everyday life. So the first misconception a lot of people have about the comparison being drawn here, they think, oh, the comparison is that when Jesus comes back, the world will be at an all-time high level of depravity and wickedness and sin, just like the days of Noah. Now you can assume that, but Jesus does not make that comparison. He's not drawing a moral comparison between the moral conditions of the world in both days. The comparison he's making is the normacy of life and the unawareness of the people. So we should let Jesus explain that when they were swept away, when the flood came, the day Noah entered the ark, which is just like the day Jesus comes, both of those days are preceded by normacy, where people are so about their normal everyday life and the world is going on as it has been, just like Peter refers to. People who are saying Jesus is never coming back. You people are funny who believe God's really going to come. Yeah, you can keep laughing, but that day's coming. And it's not preceded necessarily by incredible wickedness and depravity. Now, you can find other passages to possibly confirm that conclusion, but not in Matthew 24. It says, 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken, and one will be left. So, just like in the days of Noah, there are people who are taken, and there are people who are left. One person's taken, one person's left, and then it will go on with the women and be awake. So we'll stop there, and in the next episode, we're really going to unpack, okay, who are the people that are taken and who are the people that are left? We're not addressing that in this video. We'll address that in far more detail. But the second misconception people have, and I'm just going to give you just a little glimpse into the next episode and show my hand a little early, and then you can wait until we get there. But the second misconception a lot of people have is that the people who are taken are believers at the rapture with Jesus. Because, hey, Paul says in Thessalonians that we'll meet him in the air when we're taken. We'll read on in the context and go back to Luke 17 as well, and in Luke's account of the Olivet Discourse, and we'll see if that is the comparison Jesus is making, that, well, the people who were taken, that was Noah, and the people who were left, those were the wicked, and it will be just like that when I come back, Jesus says. We'll see if he's actually saying that. I'm not convinced that he is. But let's just go to Luke 17 for now, because Luke is going to add in some, not add in, but record some details that were left out by Matthew, okay? Jesus will say, as the lightning flashes and lights up the sky from one side to the other, so will the Son of Man be in his day. Now, I'm actually not going to get into that. But first, he must suffer many things and be rejected by this generation. We already talked about who that generation is. Just as it was in the days of Noah, here's the comparison again, so will it be in the days of the Son of Man. So Luke records Jesus as saying he has multiple days. There's a plurality of days of the Son of Man, just like the days of Noah. Now, if we're to be consistent with the comparison Jesus is drawing, well, the days of Noah refer to the days of normal everyday life leading up to the day Noah went into the ark and the floodwaters came and swept the wicked away. And so it seems as though the days that precede the second coming of Jesus, at some point we start to measure those days as being lumped into this category of the days of the Son of Man. You might say the days leading up to his great revealing and coming with the clouds, in a visible, physical sense where everyone sees the return of Jesus. They were eating and drinking and marrying. These are normal activities. Just, it notes the normacy of life. There's a lot of people want to read into this I don't know, some deeper message, like, well, the eating, it's a play on, like, going back to the Nephilim in Genesis 6, they're eating each other, if you read Enoch, and they're drinking blood, like Enoch records, and the days of Noah were wicked, and they're marrying, it's the intermarriage, he's referencing the intermarriage between the fallen angels and the women of mankind. If you want to read in all of those ideas into this verse, be my guest. I see no contextual evidence in either of these Olivet Discourse accounts. I see no evidence or reason why we should make these out to be some deeper messages about spiritual matters, or even that they're metaphorical. I think he literally means eating, drinking, and marrying. You'd have to convince me otherwise with the text. And being given in marriage until the day when Noah entered the ark. So there's that single day again. The day when Noah entered the ark is compared to the day Jesus comes back. Very similar. Both of those days seem to involve a kind of judgment is coming, and it's preceded by normal life. And the flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise, now we're going to look at the days of Lot. As it was in the days of Lot. Now, usually when people go to Matthew 24 and they say, Jesus is saying the people who are taken are the Christians at the rapture when we meet him in the air, and those who are left are the wicked to be destroyed. Usually when people believe that, they'll read this section through that bias and through that lens. And I would just like us to detach from that and say, is that what the text is honestly, like when you read this, can you honestly say that just by objectively reading the text for what it says? Because people will want to use Lot and his story to say, Lot was taken. That's the rapture. And at no point do I see that comparison being drawn. But nonetheless, let's keep reading. Likewise, in the days of Lot, let's see if Jesus is going to talk about some moral depravity, some high level of wickedness and sin and evil. They were eating and drinking, buying and selling. Now, again, if you want to make these out to be like metaphorical ideas and there's a deeper message in there, it's not literally planting and building and buying and selling, be my guest. I, again, see no reason to make it deeper than the plain meaning of the text. If we're going to look at ideas that are communicating some deeper spiritual truth in a poetic way with apocalyptic language, using imagery or using other figures of speech, like we've already looked at examples of that in the Old Testament. So you'd have to show me consistent examples of that kind of language being employed with these kinds of terms, or that those kinds of ideas being conveyed through these very plain activities and words. Eating and drinking, buying and selling, planting and building. Life is just going on normally. Once again, just like the days of Noah. Now, this is not to say, I think some people will say, so you don't believe human depravity will be at an all-time high. I'm not saying that necessarily, though I don't lean towards that. What I am saying is that the text itself is not making that comparison. I'm not making a statement at all about the moral condition of the world absolutely when Jesus comes back, though I lean to a different view than most people. What I am saying is Jesus is not commenting on the moral condition of the world. On the day when Lot went out from Sodom. So let's talk about the day Lot went out from Sodom. Real quick, if you don't know me, my name is Jason, and I have some free gifts for you at abovereproachministry.com. Go to the website or click the links in the description below to check out all of our free Bible study resources. We have online Bible classes, devotional studies, Bible study workshops, all of my sermon notes, and more. You can even join our online church community on the Discord app. We also have discussion groups all around the world, and if you don't see one in your area, message me and we'll help you start a launch group. I personally lead a group in Spartanburg, South Carolina. If you live in the area, we'd love to have you join us on Fridays for Bible study. So contact me if you're interested, and if you or your church would like me to come preach or teach, just message me or shoot me an email and we'll see what we can do, because I love preaching in person. If you're a new follower of Jesus, click the New Believers section to access everything we recommend for new believers. And be sure to snag a copy of my book, Fruitful, to support this ministry. All right, that's all I got for you. Let's jump back into the video. Okay, just like the day that the flood waters came and Noah entered the ark. So the day Lot went out from Sodom, fire and sulfur rained from heaven and destroyed them all. So what do we have between Noah and Lot's days and those two stories? Well, we have judgment coming from heaven. One is fire with Lot. One is water with Noah. Both are destruction. And in both examples, a person or a group of people are preserved and saved from that judgment and destruction that comes upon the wicked. Though life is going on very normally, the people God saves have knowledge that something else is going on. They have what you might say divine knowledge from God, secret knowledge into what God is doing, that the people who reject God, they don't have that, or they don't believe it, whatever view you take. So will it be on the day the Son of Man is revealed. So Luke likes to communicate the second coming of Jesus as being the day of Jesus, the day of his revealing from heaven. Just like fire was revealed from heaven, God's judgment was revealed from heaven in both situations. One had fire, one had water, one, depending on how you interpret the flood story, both can be localized technically, but from the typical Christian standpoint, the majority view is that it's a global catastrophic flood. That's fine. Either way, it's a region of the world or in the cosmos that experiences judgment and destruction. Verse 31 says, on that day, let the one who's on the housetop with his goods in the house do not come down to take them away. And likewise, let the one who is in the field not turn back. Remember Lot's wife. So whatever it means to turn back, right? When the day of the Son of Man comes and he's revealed from heaven, which I'm so convinced is the second coming, and this is not referring to AD 70 with the armies of Rome coming in to wipe out the temple in Jerusalem. I believe this is the second coming of Jesus. Lot's wife is the example of what it looks like to turn back or to go back and take stuff away. In other words, there's a sense in which you are invested into this place that God is removing or cleansing and destroying. There's a sense in which you are attached to this world and this life as it's passing away. Because verse 33 says, whoever seeks to preserve his life will actually lose it. Whoever loses his life will keep it, which is what Jesus says throughout the Synoptic Gospels. He'll say things like that, referring to, I think, the choice to obey Jesus and surrender to him and trust him with your life, or to disobey him and try and hold on to your life yourself in rebellion to his word. I tell you, in that night there will be two in bed, one will be taken, the other one will be left. In Matthew's example, it's two men who are in the field, and then two women who are at the mill, and Luke uses the example of two sleeping. So I think the point is that when Jesus returns, in some parts of the world it'll be nighttime, in some parts of the world it'll be daytime. I think this speaks to the fact that you can't truly predict when he comes back, because technically, whether he comes back at day or night, for us, it's going to be different for a different part of the world. And they said, where, Lord? What are they asking about? Well, where one seems to be taken. And he said, where the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. And Jesus uses the same language to speak of Jerusalem and the judgment that comes on Jerusalem through the Roman armies, and how the dead are taken, and essentially Rome is, circling Jerusalem because it's a place of spiritual deadness, and it's prime to be destroyed by the vultures or the eagles of Rome. So, in other words, if we go back to Genesis chapter 7, I'll give you a sneak peek into next episode to whet your appetite a little bit. Genesis 7, this is the record of Noah and the flood. All flesh died that moved on the earth. Okay. Birds, livestock, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, all mankind, everything on the dry land, in whose nostrils were the breath of life, died. He blotted out, which seems to speak of removing, but nonetheless, everything on the face of the ground, man and animals, they were blotted out from the earth, which I'm convinced is just another way of saying they were taken from the land of the living or the earth. Only Noah was left. So, if we're going to be consistent with the language Genesis employs to speak of two groups, one is taken, one is left, by the time we get to Matthew 24, if Jesus is drawing that comparison, it makes sense. But we'll talk about that more in the next episode. In other words, Jesus is coming. The days that precede his second coming don't seem to be necessarily marked by absolute depravity and wickedness, and sin is at an all-time high, at least not according to Matthew 24 and Luke 17. That is not the comparison Jesus is drawing. Wickedness is dealt with. Judgment comes from the heavens. I think that's what Jesus and his revealing signifies, is salvation for his people, judgment for the wicked. But nonetheless, if there is any sense of the world is at an all-time high in sin and darkness, then Jesus likely would have made that comparison. He did not. It speaks to the normalcy and the suddenness. Now you might say, well, hold on, people are caught off guard and unprepared because the world is so consumed with sin and darkness, they're blind to the spiritual reality of God's judgment coming. If you want to make that case, sure, but again, I think you're adding to what Jesus, you're going further than the comparison Jesus is actually drawing. So I'd need some biblical text to support that idea, but nonetheless, we'll get into the next video. I'll see you guys in video episode 21 in this end time series on the Gospels. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to share your thoughts and your insights in the comments. If you want to share your thoughts and questions about these studies, join us every Thursday evening at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a live discussion together. And thank you for supporting this ministry. Your support helps us accomplish our mission, which is to teach people how to read the Bible so they can live and teach it for themselves. We're only able to make all of these free resources because of generous supporters like you. So thank you very much for all of your support. Make sure to visit abovereproachministry.com to check out all of our free resources. And as always, keep moving towards Jesus.